clicking the button,
Woohoo.
pulling up the notes. Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. It is weekly scrap number 181. My guest tonight is the one and only Taylor Anderson. She is the host of the Couplings Fire podcast. With a decade in the fire service in Southeast Nebraska, married to what she describes as her incredible husband and fellow firefighter, Chris, and she is a soon-to-be mother of a very active boy. She
Extremely
serves on the
active.
board of directors for the Nebraska Society of Fire Service Instructors. She will never claim to be an expert, but she is not afraid to get into real and deep discussions. It is my absolute pleasure to have you on as a guest of Weekly Scrap number 181. Welcome, Taylor Anderson.
Thank you so much, Corley. Holy cow, this is awesome. And yes, extremely active boy. Like he is moving as we speak right now.
Ready?
Like he is ready to go. And it's hilarious because it seems like whenever I go into any fire conferences or classes is when he becomes more active. And he's just like, oh, I like fire too. Let's get in on some of that stuff.
It's time.
It's time.
Right on. Anything I missed in the intro? Anything you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I mean, there's not a whole lot backstory behind me or whatever. I'm just somebody who likes coming out here and talk. So yeah, that's it. That's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Audience, get your questions primed and ready for Taylor and myself. It should be interesting. Quick announcements. If you want to be a part of the Vigilantes, if you want to be a member of the exclusive Cool Kids Club, go to firehousevigilance.com. Exclusive swag, exclusive discounts, exclusive monthly forums. Now on to the sponsors. The OG sponsor of the scrap, Key Hose, the original Key Hose. Check them out on Facebook, The Hose Experts. Of course, we have Affordable Drill Towers, home of the Affordable Drill Tower, the Affordable Standpipe Prop, firefighter, owned and operated. Pump and roll using the Affordable Standpipe Prop. The Affordable Standpipe Prop fits through most classroom doorways for standpipe theory, and then you can roll it into the parking lot and pump it. It comes with 6 standpipe valves that can be upgraded to PRVs or customized for what you have in your jurisdiction. Call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. And the big daddy of them all, FDIC International, is where the fire service comes together. Be there April 24th through the 29th at the Indiana Convention Center to learn from the best, see the most innovative products and services from leading companies, and recharge your passion for the industry. Register now at fdic.com. Use the promo code SCRAP. So anyway, if you actually go there and use the SCRAP, because I love sponsors and I love if you use the promo code they give. Mm-hmm. All right, Taylor. We got all that out of the way. And here we go.
Here we go.
We got topics we want to talk about. Let me see what we got coming. I'm going to click in. Check in on the comments. Good. Let's get to it. Sounds good.
Sounds great. Sounds good.
It's awesome so far. No, everybody's checking in. We are checking in. We're getting going. Sounds good. Did we? No. All right. Directing your passion from unhealthy, destructive actions to purposeful outlets. And this is like I always ask before a lot of people know this if they watch the scrap. I always send out and say, hey, let me know what topics you would like to talk about and what I can research. And one of the first ones you sent was directing your passion from unhealthy, destructive actions to purposeful outlets. And I'm looking forward to see what you have to say.
Yeah, well, this is going to go in very deep, very, very quickly here.
Okay.
So I'm not like you said in the intro, like I'm not afraid to get into this stuff. So we're going to just go ahead and jump in, I guess, because what else we got to do here? So there's so many examples of getting into this, and I know people put on good classes about it. I mean, I'm even going to plug Jeremy Sanders had a class about it at Revolutionary Fire Tactics at the Lake last year that I took and things. And that class resonated with me so hard because it reminded me of my own journey, and it's so easy. Okay, let me back up a second. All right, you guys are going to get to know me here. I get a little excited and ahead of myself sometimes. So let's back up here. You go, let's see, you're new in the fire service. You get out there, you're doing stuff. You finally get to conferences. You get to see things outside of your own department. Your eyes are wide open. You are starting to get energized from everything. You're having all these little energy coming in from everything. You're talking to everybody. This is great. It's fantastic. You bring it back home, and what happens to pretty much all of us? I mean, let's be honest. It happens to all of us.
You just get the the squash put on it. Yeah.
It's crazy. And what tends to happen, what I've seen tend to happen, especially in my own life here, is it gets you frustrated. And you try so much to hold it in and to not be the one to come in and to really throw everything around or whatever. You want to come in, nice and calm. So you don't really let it show how into the fire service you've gotten, right? You try to be somewhat normal around your department, right? Eventually that doesn't work anymore, right? We just get filled up so much and so much from all these different outlets coming into us. We see stuff on social media. We're talking to fellow people in the fire service, and it just energizes us so much more. And eventually that's going to blow if you don't find a way to let that out in an actual purposeful action, purposeful way. I mean, come to think about it, you imagine just your people at your department that you're coming to, that they see these changes coming from you try to hold it back so much that you think that you're coming at it in a stair-stepped action, that it's not that different, right? That you've actually been ramping up to this. Your people back at your department don't see that. They see the complete 180, and they get just as frustrated as you do by coming back and having all this excess energy, and it's so hard because, okay, what do you do with all of this? Because if you try to change your department too much, especially where they see this 180 out of you, what are you going to do?
Right.
I'm trying to find a better way to explain this. There's always all these topics and stuff in my brain coming out, and it's always hard to explain right on the spot. But
no, you're doing well. You're doing well because there's two basically schools of thought, or not schools of thought, two basic paths that go. You go outside of your department, you go get charged up, you go hit a conference, you go get to see a Jeremy Sanders Crew First Culture or insert whoever, and you get fired up and you bring it back and it gets squashed. It can be squashed.
Mm-hmm.
Or come back and maybe it doesn't even get squashed, but you try to share it and they don't want to hear it because you don't have the influence there. Or hey, we don't do that stuff here. This is insert whatever. This is the Moore Fire Department. We don't do that here,
Oh, yeah.
And so there's so much to it, and there's no cookie cutter. There's no cookie cutter answer for what you're talking about.
Oh, no, there's not. And it's so different from everybody. And what it ended up actually being for me and my husband, because we got to that point where we started to be destructive in our department, not on purpose. We never meant to be. We never wanted to be. Right. You don't think you are being destructive. You think you're just trying to help. You're trying to spread that energy. You're trying to spread that passion to other people. And you don't see how much of a 180 that you're pulling on your people. And so you start to do these things that are actually starting to tear your department in two that you don't even recognize. But everybody else is seeing it because it's so different. And so, one way you have to make sure that you're being really careful about how fast you're implementing some of these things to kind of help other people, but you really have to find an outlet if it's becoming too much for you. And I was talking to my husband actually before we started recording, and we were talking about, for him, he uses conferences as an outlet, which it can be, but for me, conferences are more of an inlet for that energy and gets me more passion and more talking about it. And the only outlet that we could find that actually made sense to us was actually starting the podcast, finding a way to actually get our words out there where we were putting our energy into something completely different. Yes, right. We were still trying to be better and trying to better our department or other departments that we're on, right? But we were putting our main focus and trying to curb our frustrations that we were having and put it into this other way, and this can be, imagine being on a career department. It's even a lot harder than a volunteer department trying to change anything. You can't go up to the very top right away and try to change stuff if you're just one of the firefighters, going to a conference here, and even a lot of career departments, a lot of the crews can work the same way or different ways. It really depends on your culture of your department. So, it's like you got to find ways, either get on a committee or get to these other avenues. You don't have to do something crazy like start a podcast. You don't have to start a page. You don't have to do any of this stuff. You can work with small other things in your community or find even one or two firefighters to mentor or something like that to get that energy out and keep it actually being a positive outlet instead of keep trying to bring it back to your department and have it be destructive.
Right. Love it, man. And Amanda Miller posted here, Neil deGrasse Tyson's dad said, it's not enough to be right. You have to also be effective.
Yes.
And that's such a huge dichotomy. That sometimes you have to, we are really good at being right.
Yes, we are.
At the cost of being effective.
Yeah.
And so we choose, I know I'm right. I know it, but I'm not very effective in my messaging. And then Kyle had this to say as soon as I refresh. You not only delivery is key to getting others at home to buy in to outside ideas and tactics. You have to deliver it in a way that doesn't cause an emotional argument.
And that is hard to do. That is so hard to do because, I mean, a lot of times everyone is stuck in the way of their thinking. And even be honest, like you said, Corley, we're stuck in the way that we're thinking. We're stuck in like, we're right. This is the way it needs to be. And it's hard for us to even come back and try to even mold what we have to what our home base is.
Right. No doubt about it. I don't know what's happening. The live feed is dropping. I mean, it's dropping on Facebook. I think it's a Facebook issue, not an internet issue, honestly, because as soon as I click refresh, the video is back and everything's good. So for me, it's running smooth, but I'm getting messages that it is cutting up. So just letting everybody know, hit that refresh button. Hopefully it'll work. Sharing. Yes. Going on through it. The journey to start the podcast. Because you just talked about, hey, there's a lot out there, but you don't have to start a podcast. But your answer was to start a podcast. So
I know, because that makes sense.
Talk to me about couplings.
So about couplings, oh my goodness. Okay, so obviously lots of excess energy there. Had to find some way to get it out in a good way. So it actually started back in November of 2020, actually. Yeah, November 2020. And basically I had this big pull. I had tons of energy. Obviously, I was listening to other amazing podcasts out there. And I was like, I don't know why. I know there's tons of podcasts, especially fire podcasts. This is not the time to get into fire podcasts. Why are you thinking about doing a podcast?
Right.
And but something was pulling at me so hard. And it's hilarious because it is the biggest pull I've ever had to do anything in my entire life. And I joke and say that's even harder than the pull that I had to marry my husband, but it actually is.
Right.
So I don't know what it was, but God was telling me, okay, you got to do something with this. I don't know what it is, but you got to do this. There's something here. And so I was talking to my husband about it, and he's like, hey, you get into things really quickly. You have a very like goal setter mind right here. He's like, if you get into something, you're all for it. I don't know if you have time for this or necessarily if I want to do it with you. Take 2 weeks and make sure you still want to do it. Is kind of what he told me. I was like, okay, I'll take 2 weeks. I ended up taking 2 months to think about it some more because I was like, I really want to make sure that this is a thing to do because starting a podcast is not something to take lightly.
Right.
It takes a lot of work.
No, there's a lot of work and effort that goes into it, without a doubt.
Oh man, it's so much. And so he thought I forgot about it, actually. He's like, oh, she completely forgot. No idea. Brought it up to him again in January of 2021. And he's like, okay, let's do it. Let's start it. And we recorded a couple episodes, and it wasn't until after the Les Lukert Winter Conference then in 2021 is when I actually kind of got the energy and the confidence, I should probably say, the confidence to actually buck up and actually put it out there for everyone to listen to. And as everyone knows, the first episodes are always terrible on podcasts. I mean, I don't know what it is. You always getting your feet wet and trying to make sure everything's going right and whatnot. But
right. No, without a doubt, man. It's so nerve-wracking at first.
It is yes. So nerve-wracking. And you don't like the sound of your voice and you have to edit it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I sound like that.
Right.
And trying to get my husband to stop clicking his pen. Oh, that was like the worst thing ever. But after a while, we got the hang of it. And then it ended up where my husband got a career job, and honestly, he had to focus on that. So he stepped away from the podcast. So then it was just me, but I didn't want to stop. So what I ended up doing is I ended up kind of evolving the podcast then to be both me doing solo episodes because I like talking about fire stuff or other things, and then bringing on a lot more guests and stuff with it too. And that's where I have the most fun because we get into random fun topics, and then like we'll talk about it, I'm sure, later too, or whenever you want to, but the family firefighter survival sections,
right? Just
because I needed help with that part. And that's become a very big part of the podcast now.
No, I love it. And Tony Seymour had this to say, talking about the podcast and talking about you specifically. Taylor Anderson puts raw emotion into her podcast and connects with you, the listener, at a level that most other podcasters can't. The message means so much more when you have that connection.
Oh, thank you, Tony.
So, but no, 100%. I agree with that. Yeah, I'm reading comments. I'm catching up. I got your first question coming at you from the audience. Are you ready, Taylor?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's go.
Taylor, were you able to affect your crew with new ideas or from going to conferences with, where you get them to able to share the same passion?
That's tough. I've gotten people to on occasion, not the entire department or whatnot. It that has been very difficult for me, and it's difficult for a lot of people. But the way I like to see it too is if you focus on that one person who needs it, that one person who's going to follow you, I would rather be able to really speak to one person and get them to also have that same drive. And then from there, multiply it. It's kind of like the movie Pay It Forward. I don't
Right.
know if you've okay. You have the one person, then three people they help, and then from
Right.
there, three more people. That's the way I like to think of it now. It was very, very defeating in the very beginning of it when I brought stuff back, and it was just not. It's not that they didn't receive it well. It's not that they didn't encourage me to go out and do this. I'm not going to say that because they did, but it was really tough bringing some of those ideas back at the same time. And it's a game like that, right? Like they want to see you get better, but at the same time, it's hard to change things, right?
Sure.
And this is every department. So, but what I like to do is, find that one person, find that one thing, and get that person hooked just like you. And it's going to take the right scenario. But it was really fun because we went to the Les Luger conferences last year, just a few weeks ago. And I was able to convince somebody else from my department to go. Well, from what I've seen so far, he's caught the bug, which makes me ecstatic, because he is like ready to go now. He's like ready for next year. He wants to know like the next things we're doing and whatnot. Like, what other trainings are you going to? Like, and I am so excited because he was already into fire before that conference, but now he's really caught the bug for it. And that is so much fun to see. So I will say it is hard to get your entire department on board. Or your crew on board with it. I can't say bored. I say bold. Yeah. But yes, focus on that one person. I'd say if you're having any troubles anywhere, and it doesn't have to be the person on your department. Pick somebody else from somewhere else, that you're working with. If you know someone from a neighboring department or from just out there in the interwebs, help them get more into it, and that will help the fire service spread out.
Right on. People aren't against you. They are for themselves. I love human behavior. I love the motivation behind why humans do what they do. So I really like this topic that you brought up, but people aren't against you. Talk to me about it.
Okay. You're probably like me. You, well, maybe not grew up, but like you grew up with the Disney movies, the villains. Everybody is like the harsh, you have the Queen of Hearts going after Alice and stuff like that. You have the evil queen going after Snow White, trying to kill him. They're just downright villains, right?
Right.
And that's what everyone likes to think. They think if they're doing something in the fire service and somebody is out there to get them, there is a villain out there. There's somebody that they're neck and neck with. That's, to me, not how life works. And it's one of those, you have to get yourself stepping out of your comfort zone, stepping out of the way you think. Stepping out of the own algorithm in your brain of the way you think and trying to put yourself in their shoes. And I know that sounds so corny, but you really have to. Because if you get yourself out of your own shoes and start thinking about, okay, where are they actually coming from on this? You're starting to realize that people are doing what they believe is right. They're not doing, they're not just trying to do things against you necessarily. Let's see here. I don't know if we lost him or if we're good to go still. I don't know if I'm still alive. I'll still keep talking. So you see that people aren't necessarily against you. They're just doing what they think is right. Okay, so let's say there's another firefighter on your same level of your department right here, and you're doing things, and they seem to be combating you every section of the way, right? They're doing what they think is right. Okay, I don't mean to bring politics into this, but let's talk about Republicans and Democrats for a second. You can demonize people on both realms of that. But if you talk to anyone on either side, they are genuine. They really think that they're doing the right thing. They think the other side are the villains and completely against them. And that's just not the way the world works. I really believe that there's a very, very small percentage of people out there that are actually out there to just ruin your day. I mean, that captain or chief that comes in and is all in a terrible mood, and coming at you and in the morning, and they just had a bad day or whatever it is, and they come out and they chew you out like crazy. I don't think that they're doing that on purpose to chew you out just to make you feel like crap. They're coming at it because let's say they've had a hard day. Let's say something else big happened. And let's say that they're super sleep deprived. And honestly, that is kind of the last straw on what they have to be able to handle. So they take it out on you. They're not trying to necessarily be mean to you. It's just part of it. So yes, exactly. They're not villains. They're doing what they think is right here. There's so much gray area in all of this.
Taylor, viewers, I apologize. We have lost Corley. Taylor, if
Okay.
I'm getting you back on the screen so that you're in full view. You go ahead
Okay.
and keep talking. I'm going to try to get Corley back.
Okay. I was wondering about that. I'm like, oh no, we're still going, hopefully. Okay. And I can't see any comments or anything. So I have no idea if anyone's asking anything. I might pull that up too. But sorry. Dropped film. My own technical difficulties here. Let's see here. So okay, so let's go on with this. Let's keep talking about going on this route, but let's move into bad communication or communication in general. I'm a huge believer that communication can make or break anybody, anything, anywhere. Bad communication is, in my opinion, one of the biggest killers of firehouse culture. There's a lot of killers out there for firehouse culture, let's be honest. But bad communication is a big one. Oh, hey, we got him back.
I had to fire up the hotspot just to get back in. The internet decided to completely take a dump.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Did you carry?
I attempted to carry.
Okay.
I can't see the comments, so we'll see what people say, but I attempted to carry.
I couldn't see them either because the internet was down. So
I was just actually getting into the bad communication. Unless there's anything you want to talk about on the villains or the people against you.
I'm not quite sure what you said on it, but I'm 100% on point, and what Taylor said, I'm sure, is amazing. So and leave it and try to get back on point here with a slight hiccup.
Oh, yay.
So thanks for carrying, Taylor.
Don't you love technology?
No, I absolutely do not. Bad communication.
Bad communication. So yeah, I believe it's one of the biggest killers in the firehouse culture. And there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of killers for firehouse culture.
Sure.
But bad communication is by far my biggest pet peeve out of everything. I mean, I see this at home with my husband, how bad communication is terrible. We were just talking the other day. Something so stupid, so simple. Okay, rabbit trail here. He was going to make French toast for lunch the other day. I said, hey, that'd be really yummy. Would it bother you to have it for lunch tomorrow night or supper tomorrow night too? And he's like, sure. Well, apparently I didn't communicate that in the right way. So
Right.
he ended up not having French toast for lunch and expected to have something that I was warming up as leftovers. And he's just like, what, you didn't save enough for me to have too? And I'm like, well, no, you were going to have French toast. He's like, well, no, we decided to have it tomorrow night. And then I realized, oh, like I didn't say that in the way that I thought I said it. He took a completely different way. And that is like a total basic, like, doesn't matter kind of communication issue there, but
Right.
Those pile up.
No, and they happen every day.
Oh yeah, and that's what happens is there's not usually any one big lack of communication thing that happens in our firehouse, in the fire service, right, with our people. It's usually a bunch of little things that add up into that big bucket where we finally just can't handle it anymore, and the culture just kind of goes. Right. Like no one knows exactly what happened. There wasn't a big fight that happened or anything. It's just all this little stuff that made you resenting somebody else or start to be passive aggressive with people or thinking, oh, I got to check this because I know they're not going to check their air pack because of this and this and this
Right.
or whatever. I better check the ambulance over, and stuff like that because I know they didn't do it for some reason. When, it's usually comes down to some sort of lack of communication, whether that be down to you didn't say something you should have said because you thought they could read your mind or you thought they should know, which no. I can't read my husband's mind and we've been married for 10 years. Like There's no way that's happening. How
And
can I
vice versa.
read?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. How can I read somebody else's mind? Like that, tell me everything. Like, I would rather have somebody be down to the dumbest points of something that they think I should know, as long as they tell it to me, they knew they communicated it to me.
No,
No one has any excuse at that point.
How good are we at assuming that other people know what we said? You know, and that
Exactly.
Right. And it compounds itself so badly.
Oh man, it's so bad. Because you just expect, well, I told them this one time to do this thing, you know, I told the recruit this one time to do this, so they should know. They should know what to do, even if it's a different scenario.
Right.
Well, do they? You know, like they might not have understood that it was for every scenario.
Right.
You know, I've come up against that a lot. Just myself.
Almost every time. And there's a theory I'm working on, which it ties into your bad communication. So it ties into the bad. But my theory is that every problem in every organization, and I don't know if I would apply it to every relationship, but it might work. It might work that way. So I'll keep an open mind. It comes down to a lack of expectations being set, which comes down to communication.
Yes, I would definitely say it's for every relationship. And I mean, I'm not just talking like romantic relationship, down to, you know, father son, come down to best friends talking together,
leader follower. Yes.
Anything. The lack of setting expectations and the lack of communication, or just the bad communication. You can say something that means exactly what you said. You can say the words out, right? But if you say it in the wrong connotation, the wrong words, the wrong tones, that's a whole different meaning. They're going to get something completely different off of that. You know, some people cannot read sarcasm.
Right.
You know, it depends on who's saying the sarcasm, if I'm even able to take it, you know, so you can't rely on that. You can't rely on
all that nonverbal communication. Yes.
And there's so much out there. I mean, most of what we ingest is nonverbal communication, and we don't think about it. You know, the way you're placing your arms, the way like you're like, even
that slight eye roll.
Is it? Oh, the slightest. Yeah. If you're talking to somebody, you look off to the side, you know, or something like that. Those things mean nothing to us as we're saying stuff, but it means everything to the person listening.
Right. The subconscious, even if it's not conscious.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You know, even positioning, are you facing straight towards somebody, or are you like off and like facing this way and like talking towards them this way? All of that adds into this. So it's a lot of these little bad communication things that happen that compound and that end up tearing the firehouse culture apart. And no one knows exactly how it got there.
Or a relationship apart.
Yes, exactly.
Which the firehouse is the firehouse culture is a whole bunch of relationships.
It really is.
Yeah. No.
I mean, it's a family for a reason. I mean, we all love and hate our families. Let's be honest. I love and hate my extended family at the same time.
That beautiful love-hate relationship. Yes. Let's get to something I love talking about, but I want to hear what you think of imposter syndrome and what that word means to you, because I know I know how I learned it. I want to hear what it means to you.
What imposter syndrome means to me. I feel like we're on like classic like interview section here. It's being somewhere or doing something that you don't believe that you are worthy of is kind of where I put it. And honestly, let's be honest, I have a little bit of imposter syndrome being on here. I'm just going to state that for the fact. It's a little nerve-wracking. It's like, how did I get to this place? Because I don't have all these certifications of all these people you tend to have on.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm not a big city firefighter. I don't know a lot about every like this specific topic. And so, go ahead. No,
I want to say, because I've heard people use different. I wanted to ask you what it meant to you, because I love the term imposter. I love the theory of imposter syndrome, but a lot of people have different meanings for it. So I wanted to see what it meant to you before I dug into it. And 100%, it's that feeling of any minute someone's going to pull the rug out from under you and say, "Ha ha, you're not supposed to be here."
Yes, you know, exactly.
It's different than a lot of people can. When they say imposter syndrome, they mean someone who's trying to fake it. And that's not what I mean by it at all. But go ahead. Okay. So now that we're on the same page.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. It's just like it's one of those like I don't feel right to be here. Not that I'm a big deal or anything, but like or that I should be a big deal, but it's like I don't feel like I'm a big enough deal to be here. I don't feel like I'm good enough to be in the spot, and this is something that's been hindering me in my fire service career for years, probably since the beginning.
Right.
When I first started the fire service, I didn't feel like I should be there because I wasn't a super active person at the time when I started. I was on a volunteer department. I didn't know how to start a chainsaw. I didn't know basics of car mechanics. I still don't.
No,
Stuff
I'm
like
with you.
that are pretty traditional to people that like, oh, you should know this. You should know how to change oil in a car or something like that. Let's just throw that out for an example or something. Like you should know how to do this stuff being in the fire service because we have to do a lot of these own maintenance to our own equipment. You should know how this stuff works. And I never had any of that before. I came from a very, very city life.
Right.
I grew up on the main street in our city, growing up and stuff like that. I didn't get into any of this other stuff until later in life. And I should say later in life, but
Right.
21 or something like that. But I didn't grow up around it, And so you're around like all these awesome farmers and other people who are in these trade jobs coming and doing volunteer work. And you just feel out of place. You feel that imposter syndrome right away. And it goes to starting the podcast. Huge imposter syndrome there because, I'm not going up against, but, I'm joining the ranks of these people who I've been listening to for years, and what do I have to talk about,
Right.
Kind of thing. Will anyone think I'm quote unquote worthy to be there?
Right.
When I got elected to the Nebraska Society of Fire Service Instructors Board of Directors, that threw me for a loop. I'm just like, wait a second, I have no reason to be here. I'm not an instructor. I don't know a ton about running a conference or anything. Why am I here?
Right.
And again, it's just like I shouldn't be here. And so much it holds a lot of us back. It keeps us from putting in the applications to things we want to do. It keeps us from seeking out the opportunities or taking advantage of the opportunities that are laid before us. And I wonder how much farther, not just myself, but others out there would be if we were able to just drop this whole imposter syndrome feeling and just go at those, not with huge egos, right? Not thinking that like, oh, we're the best that there's ever been, but just taking those as they come and seeing that in some cases, okay, yeah, we do deserve to be here,
Right. No.
You're not deserving because of your titles or what you've done. You're deserving because you want to be there.
No, 100%. And one thing I always, I think a little bit is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit is healthy because it keeps
Yeah.
you hungry. It keeps you hungry and humble. Because if you ever don't have that little like niggling feeling of, am I supposed to be here? If you ever feel like you deserve it, you start believing your own press. You start thinking you're a big deal. And that's a very dangerous thing that, I never want to be that I got some comments to catch you up on here.
Of course.
Casey McIntosh said we're going back to some topics here. So you gotta but he said we shouldn't have to read minds, lay out expectations and drive people to meet them and let them know when they don't, man.
Yes.
And that's 100%, brother.
I think the follow-up is hard for a lot of people to do. Let them know when they don't. People lay out the expectations, but they never come back and check on people about it.
There's a couple questions coming back from the other. David Stender said, is there a problem of over expectation? So I'm gonna throw that at you and let you see what you think.
I think it depends on how you look at it.
Okay.
You shouldn't, let's see. I don't necessarily think you should have the same expectations from everybody, and that might ruffle some feathers.
Sure.
I think that you should modify your expectations for each person and where they're at. Build their own stepping stones, build their own blocks of where they're going to go, right? And modify it to them. What is actually going to set them up for success?
Right.
For it. So, and I definitely think you can definitely put way too many expectations on somebody. Like, you got to make sure that you're getting, especially like the most important things that you know that they need to have. First firefighter, or the firefighter, just coming on. Most important thing they can learn, okay, first of all, stay safe. like how do you stay safe? Okay, let's do this. Then how do you safely carry tools? How do you safely run a nozzle? Stuff like that. Those are the important things for them to learn. for somebody who's on it for a lot longer, okay, you have a lot more expectations here on you. And these expectations are going to look very different from this person. They're just, you have to start looking over other people too. Your expectation is to help lead other people as well. Your expectation is to know when we go to this type of call, this is what you do because you've been doing it for these many years.
Right on.
And things like that. So that's kind of how I'd put it. So I think it just really depends on how you look at it, but
right. No, it's a great answer. It's a great answer, especially the moving. I'm not saying a moving target because that's not what you mean.
Yeah,
but you mean matching the expectations to the person's skill set.
Yes,
and then allowing them to grow into. Obviously, there's a minimum standard, and then and a standard you want them to reach. I love that. What I'll say to David, he says, is there a problem of over expectation? I will say, yes, there is when there's no communication to let people know what that expectation is. Yes. So because it ties back to the communication. If you have a high expectation, but you're not very, very crystal clear on it, then your expectation is worthless. The communication is what makes the expectation have value, at which point you can have accountability, because without the communication, it doesn't matter what your expectation is because you can't hold people accountable if they don't know what it is. Yeah, beautiful. Some other stuff I wanted to read here. It came from Amanda Miller. What are examples of bad communication in the firehouse?
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like you could take just about anything. But let's. Of course, you asked me a question, my mind just blanks.
Right on. Perfect. It's a scrap.
It's a scrap. Your mind just blanks. You don't realize how hard it is until you're here. It's kind of like watching Family Feud earlier. They're like, how is that answer so hard for you?
Right.
But oh, go ahead. Oh, yeah. I would say, okay, let's just get down to something simple. Reloading a hose lay. Okay. You tell them to, hey, reload a hose lay. Awesome. Well, first of all, did they know like how you wanted it done in the first place? Hopefully they did, you know, stuff like that. But what if they reloaded the wrong hose that you didn't mean to? What if they were supposed to switch out stuff or do something a little bit different or whatever it is? What if the way they cleaned out the rig was supposed to be done this other way per new protocols or something like that, right? But they didn't know that. You know what?
Really, it comes down to expectation tied to communication.
Those are very much, actually, they are very much together in that.
Yeah. The more you talk about it, the more I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is really expectation properly communicated. At which point.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And talk about marriage too. Yeah. It's all expectations and communication there. You have to get into that and like actually communicate your expectations. That is exactly it. Yes.
No. Again, it's tying back into my theory that every problem in every organization and relationship comes down to a lack of clear expectations.
Yeah.
So, again, from Amanda Miller, this one is, how do you negotiate the culture, the clash / ideological clash between those whose foundation is set in the leaders eat first versus a culture of leaders eat last / servant leadership?
Ooh.
So basically old school versus new school, you know, kind of the archaic industrial revolution management style leadership versus servant based protect those you're responsible for leadership.
I am getting hit with hard ones, I feel like. Okay.
That's all. So, there's no soft tosses.
No, there's not. Shoot. Well, and the hard part is I haven't been on that other leadership side of things, right? Like I've always been in the firefighter position. That's what I've been doing this whole time. I'll be very, very open about that. And so it's hard to see too, because I don't know too much about the other side. I can guess, I can talk to other people and get their input, but it's so hard to look at things from the other side when you haven't been there at the same time too. But that is really tough. And that just comes down to each person's personality of, you know, of course, which leadership style they begin to take, but I don't know how you begin to change that or address it. And I hate saying I don't know, because I don't like to say I don't know about things. I think all of us don't like to say we don't know.
Right.
But dang.
No, it's a tough one.
That Amanda, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Amanda, my goodness, you're stumping me on that one for sure. Because you can do what you can to try to talk with them and try to see them and show them into other ways of leading or whatever, but it's
At
It'd
the
be
end
a
of the
long,
day,
hard road. They're gonna do what they want to do, and that's hard. I don't know. At the end of the, well, going on your thing. At the end of the day, I feel like you need to just keep pressing with what you're pressing, and eventually it will change over. It will eventually get to that point. It just might take a while to get to that point. I don't know. What do you think, Corley?
no, because it's a tough question. There's no easy answer to that.
Yeah.
And Amanda Miller only brings the hardest, fastest,
Thank
straight
you.
hardballs coming at you. But no, 100% is if they're in the position of authority and they have an archaic, like, theory X form of leadership or whatever term you want to put on it, I don't care. If they're not connected to like relationship based leadership, that is a very tough thing for a young person or any person who studies human psychology, human interaction, or anything. And then you just sit there and you get to look at them and go, you're in charge of me, but you're clueless and you can't figure out why you're so ineffective.
Yeah.
And you just kind of like, you got your hands up going, I can't help you because you don't want to be helped. You're ignorant. So the only answer I have for it is to focus on what you can control, which is yourself, do the right thing, and let attrition do its work. And I wish I had a better answer than that, but that's the only, and then promote so that because there is a problem in the American Fire Service where people don't promote because they love being on the knob. They love being whatever position they're in. They don't promote. So who does? The people who have that stinking leaders eat first mentality, the politicians, the policymakers, and then they stand around and say, why are these people in control? And it's because you didn't promote. That's why.
Let's talk about that for a second, because you're gonna get me fired up on this one.
Okay, go ahead.
I understand the senior man thing. I really do. I get it. I love it. At the same time, I hate it because you get into this cycle where nobody wants to step up and get to that next spot because they don't want to either have, well, I don't think it's necessarily they don't want to have that responsibility. I just think they really like being the senior man. They like running on the calls. They like doing those things. They don't love the back end work, the more white collar side of the fire service. The fire service is blue collar. Let's say that, yes.
Yes.
But it's blue collar meeting white collar at a lot of steps, especially once you start getting up. You have to add in some of that in there.
It's blue collar, period. This is where I'll disagree with you. It's blue, not disagree, but it's blue collar, period. But because the blue collars have refused to promote, the policymakers, the politicians, the bean counters have promoted over the last 70 years and have turned the top end into a white collar profession. Mm-hmm. And now we look at it and go, what happened? Why is this a blue collar, white collar? Because, and the problem is it's baked into the cake. It really is. It's awesome to be a senior man. It's awesome to be a company officer. It's awesome to crawl down a hallway and work shift work. What sucks is promoting up and taking on responsibility to control the future of the American Fire Service. And if you extrapolate that over 70 years, you get where we're at.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. You're good.
You got
me
fired up.
Hey, that makes it a good scrap. We're getting each other fired up. This is great. No, but if you need people who need to get up to that level, who can work with the white collars, who can work with your city officials, who can work with the other things, get things done, but still be at the heart of it, a down to earth working firefighter, wanting to be there, being one of the quote unquote guys, girls, whatever you want to say. I don't care. Being part of it, being part of the brotherhood here. You need to have those people get up all the way to those ranks of fire chief or higher, whatever rank your structure, your department goes on, because if you get too many people staying on the bottom, it sinks and it settles. And then everyone's it's this whole us versus them, what it tends to be. And I hate that. I hate the us versus them mentality where I start to see from the firefighters, from the crews to the upper management staff. And I shouldn't say just management staff, but the upper staff, the upper chiefs and things. It shouldn't be that way. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Right on, man. Okay. I'm telling everybody right now, I've been staring at the same comment for like 10 minutes because it's not updating unless I hit my refresh button. I'm sure it's my internet. I'm just letting you know. There's been like a lot of comments I would have thrown at you because I didn't realize it wasn't moving. No, 1000%. Great question from Amanda and great answer from Taylor. Tony Seymour wants to know, Taylor, can you speak of the process of finding your why?
Ooh, Fun. Okay. So my why. Okay. So when I was helping my husband go through interviewing for a fire department, he absolutely hated me. Absolutely hated me because I did the 5 whys with him. And now if you guys have never heard of the 5 whys, this is a business practice actually that I did for my business that I learned through different seminars and things, where you actually start like on the outside. Okay, what's why? What is your business? Why do you do this? Why are you doing this in your business? So you say your generic answer. Okay. It's not good enough. Why do you do it from that?
Right.
Not good enough. Why do you do it? And it keeps coming down. Oh man, he was about ready to bite my head off because we did it more than once.
Right.
Trying to get him down to his basic why.
Okay.
And it's such a tough process. You have to be so stinking honest with yourself when you're going down through this, because it's not just I do this because I love to help others. You do, but no, go deeper. There's something deeper than that in there. So why do you do it? Because you like to help others. What's beneath that? What's the layer beneath that? And now it's making me think of Shrek with onions and layers here, but you go down into those layers of, okay, what, why do you want to help people? Why is that important to you? Okay, well, for me, it's important to me to help other people because overall, it makes me feel good. Let's be honest. And this is where you have to get into those things that you don't want to admit. People never want to say they're in the fire service because it makes them feel good. No, that people think that they're going to get crucified for saying that stuff. Right. You won't, because everyone thinks it. Okay, well, that's still not good enough. So what is the next level down? Why does it make you feel good? Well, maybe because, let's say for my instance, I don't feel like I get recognition other places and things like that. So getting this here makes me feel good. Okay, well, why? Why don't you get recognition in other places? Why do you feel that way?
Right.
For me, okay, I think it's because I don't trust myself in my own skin. So in a long, drawn out way, why do I do this? Why do I do my side of the fire service? Why am I doing the podcast? Why am I doing all this? Why am I talking to you today, Corley? Is because my why is because I want other people to feel okay in their own skin.
Okay. So that's some deep soul searching stuff, man.
It is, and it sucks to get to that point.
Right.
And I don't think I did 5 levels there, but like you get down and you have
but
to
you just keep asking
so
why.
honest.
You just get past the surface and start digging and picking at scabs and digging.
Yes. And it is the best and worst thing to do, because you find out a lot about yourself. You find out a lot about other people, other things when you start asking them these whys, but you really get down to the way their brain works.
Okay.
And then everything you do after that is to that why. And as long as you stick to that, then you're going to always be true to yourself. And you're always going to be moving yourself forward in a way that's actually going to make you progress and be who you're meant to be. I know that sounds kind of corny too, but you're going to set yourself up for a good path if you're following what your inner desire is for that.
No, I love it. I mean, I love it and I hate it at the same time, because I'm sitting here going in my own head going, holy crap, do I got to look in the mirror and admit that I just like when people give me compliments, and what I'm saying, like digging into the selfish like stuff you don't want to actually admit. Oh,
that's the stuff that I love and hate getting into, is just because it is selfish. But people are selfish. Let's stop pretending that we're not. We are. We have to own it, and we have to find a way to get past that. Understand that it's a part of us, that it's human nature, that we're all selfish. We all do this job for at least partly for ourselves. Right. We'd do it something else if it wasn't partly for ourselves. We all love doing this, So if you keep that in your brain of getting down to that why, and then
it's strong. Yeah, it's strong. And Brant Clapp said, "I'm going to dig down and find out my crew's why this next shift. Good stuff. 3 exclamation points. There you go."
And it might take weeks. It might take months for people to get down to that. It probably took my husband several different times of asking him to get down to that. And then honestly, that's what, I don't want to say his interview was easy, but it was easier to know what answers he wanted to give to things, because he always answered to what his why was. It always matched because it was easy, because he already figured it out. Right. He already figured out why he wanted to be there.
No, it makes the questions easier when you dig that deep. Everything else gets easier.
Yeah, it does.
Amanda Miller followed up and said, yeah, I know. She was responding to Smoothbore, and she said, it's sad to me. I love this comment, so I wanted to read it.
Oh, yeah.
It's sad to me because I've been pressured so much to promote, but I refuse because I want to be a career firefighter. I fantasize about accruing 25 years of being a backstep firefighter, and they made the excellent, inarguable point about the real need to promote in order to make change. It seems like giving up the best job in the world in order to make the best job in the world potentially better, and that can be depressing. The idea of leaving the back. And before I let Taylor run with that or anything, that's the problem is our problem is baked into the cake. The best job is down at the bottom, or at best at company officer, at best.
Yeah.
And so people don't want to go up into the positions that determine the future. And so the problem is baked into the cake, and it's been cooking a lot of cakes since I always point at World War II and say the 1940s, 1950s. And for 70 years, we have been promoting the wrong people, and we are seeing the results now and looking around at each other going, what's the problem with recruitment and retention? I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand. And no, the problem is it's baked into the cake.
And it's definitely that sacrifice you're talking about, that she was talking about.
No, 100%.
It's hard to sacrifice that. It really is.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to selfishness. We want that time on. We want to say we're on the backstep for 25 years. Who doesn't? I mean, come on. And it's so hard to get past that, to want to sacrifice that, because you've worked so hard to get to that place. So why would you just give it up?
Right.
And it's something that, I mean, it's not right for everyone to promote. I'm not going to say that everyone needs to promote, but I do think everyone needs to think long and hard about it and really put in the effort to think, okay, does it make sense for me to promote? Should I take that step and try? Because if I don't, nothing will get done. Things might stay the same way it is. Are you okay with that? It's something you really have to think about. Are you okay with it staying the same?
No, and every class is, I want us to ask the question. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. But I'm like, every person in here knows that person they look at and say, he would be the perfect fire chief.
Oh, yeah.
He would be the perfect fire. Everybody knows, like, if he would be the fire chief, I'd follow him to the gates of hell. You know what I'm saying? And everybody knows that person. But they're a backstep firefighter. They're a company officer. They're insert whatever they currently are. And that's not, the problem is it's not a bad thing that they're there. The problem is the fact that it's baked in that it's okay to be there. At which point you don't get to go on up and make the decisions that make this the best job on earth. So anyway, I'll quit. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. Back to Taylor. The public doesn't know as much as we think they know. Oh,
yes. This is another big pet peeve of mine that all of us do it. I've done it.
Right.
And it wasn't until like here more recently that I've actually begun thinking about this. But how much do we not freak out, I don't know, make a big deal about so-and-so doesn't know how to pull over when emergency vehicles are coming up behind them? Every day, every shift, you have somebody up there and you are screaming at them from your seat, telling them to move over, and they're just not budging. Right. You have the person who is making all these safety violations of stuff that they have no idea. You go into their house, there's 10 space heaters or something like that, all plugged into these outlets, and like it looks like a mess. You're like, how do you not know that this is a bad idea? And they legitimately have no idea that like that's a bad thing. They're like, wait, what? It's all just electricity. It's no big deal. How many times have you heard that people don't actually know what you do? That they think that you either A, sleep all day, or B, never sleep in a full 24-hour shift.
Right.
Because they wonder why it takes you so long to get there at like 5 a.m.
Right.
Like people don't know as much as we think they do.
Right.
And I want to argue the fact that it's okay, and they actually don't have to know as much as we think they do.
Well, and we also, and I think that's probably part of your point, is we also need to take control of the perception of what they think we do.
Yes. So people need subtle educating, a lot of subtle educating. And this comes from a lot of, your public information officers, your social media, however you deal with it, or just your interaction with them on a day-to-day basis. But you need to just go up there and subtly tell them, hey, or just let them know through these different ways. and it has to be settled because if you make them feel like they're dumb, they're not going to listen to you anyways. But
Right.
I'm going to pose this argument too. Why should they know everything we do? Why should they know the hard calls we go to, or
Right.
the fact that we don't get to eat? You know, do you know how a plumber's life works? If you're not a plumber, do you know how all the intricacies are and what you should or shouldn't be doing?
Right.
You know, if you're not a mechanic, do you have to know all the things with your car of what you should be doing, or what this light means, or when you should change your oil, or things like that? You know, like, they may be simple to the mechanic, but the everyday people out there have no idea, and they don't need to know. There's so much going on. This just happens to be our lives.
And there's so much we can control that we don't allow to be. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just it just happens to be our lives. Before I got married, I didn't know there were such a thing as volunteer fire departments. Let's be very honest. And that shocks a lot of people. They're like, well, how didn't you know? Well, the city I grew up in had a career department, and I've never been around enough small towns or enough other towns to know that. Like, had no idea that there were even such a thing as volunteers. I didn't know really what I thought. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about the town of 500 people and what they do when a fire comes out, because it didn't matter to me.
Right.
Because I was never in a town of 500 people, and emergency never happened.
Right.
You know, why does it matter to me? And that sounds harsh, but that's reality. So, you know, like, why would you care if you know, something happened with the airlines, something like that, if you're not flying?
Right.
It doesn't
It's
affect
tragic.
you.
You're like, oh, that's tragedy. That airline went down, but there's no connection to it whatsoever.
Exactly. And this even goes all the way to your city officials too. Your city officials, or whoever your governing board is for your fire department, they don't know as much as you think they know.
Right.
And it's okay. They expect you to be on top of it. That's why there's a fire department. They're just like everything else, just like with the electricity, just like with the water department, like everything else, like, you take care of your own lane. Like, they're just there to help you out on the big stuff, or, you know, help you get things, or however it is.
Right.
They don't know all the intricacies. So you have to have a good relationship, or have someone in your department to be able to actually convey to them in their terms that they understand, to be able to make the stuff work, because it's not their responsibility to keep up on what you guys do every day. I hate saying it, but it's true.
No, I'm with you. And honestly, you control the narrative. If you can control the narrative, you can control the narrative to
Exactly.
To impact the purse strings, at least, if nothing else.
Yes.
I love asking the question. It's my favorite question, actually. Book or books that you think firefighters should be reading?
Okay, so book or books. So let me say here first that I am what they call a book dragon, not a bookworm. So this
that mean you devour?
No. So a book dragon hoards.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They mean to read the books, but they hoard. So I'm definitely a hoarder of books. I have tons of books that I need to read. I have a huge shelf downstairs with like all these books. But I always go back to the ones I love too. So one book that I think, well, this is actually 4 books wrapped into one recommendation here. I'm gonna say the entire Lord of the Rings saga.
Okay.
And I know that's very different from what most people say on here.
I've never had on a scrap anybody say the Lord of the Rings, like you say in the Hobbit and all 3, or all 4. No?
Yep, Hobbit and the 3 Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to include the Silmarillion. Don't worry
Leave
about
the
that
Silmarillion out. All the Book of Lost Tales, those are not counted.
No, I mean, like, feel free to go into those. I mean, they're really good, but we're going to stick with the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And I got reasons.
Okay, I want to hear the reasons, because this is the first time anybody's ever suggested Tolkien on the scrap.
First of all, I'm a huge Tolkien fan. I grew up with Tolkien. It's part of my DNA, but
I'm a nerd. You're in my wheelhouse, so you're good. I don't know about everybody else listening, but absolutely, go ahead.
They're just probably like, where is she going with this?
Okay.
But overall, it comes down to so much stuff that you can learn from this series of books, right? It's not just the amazing action adventure epic tale that we all know, and well, maybe not know and love, but it's awesome awesome, epic, and adventurous, and it's amazing, but it gets past that, right? It shows you so many dynamics of things. It shows you getting out of your comfort zone, doing something you're not comfortable with at all. It shows you, joining up with other people from all these different walks of life, right? You have all of these, you have the elves, you have the dwarves, you have the men, the hobbits, everyone coming together to form this one fellowship. They could have all been one entity, let's say just all elves, but they wouldn't have been able, I don't believe, to actually get the job done in the end with all this. And so it really shows you, the working with other people, working with other skill sets, other backgrounds of people, and learning to not just accept it and work with them, but really embrace it. And because it shows, by the end, they all become really good friends and stuff too. It shows the brotherhood through all of it, the fellowship there, the working with those different than you, the sting of the tragedy that you get from all the things that happen, all the people who die, and the sweetness of the victory when it's finally over. One part that sticks out the most to me that I think of so often is when Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas, and if you guys have read the movies, this part's the same in there. But they go after Merry and Pippin when they're taken, Right. They didn't have to. They could have said, oh, we'll let them be. We'll go do this other thing and help that. No, they didn't leave the people in their fellowship to do, become whatever happened by Saruman. They went for them. They ran for days and weeks and forever to catch up to them. They went over hills. They went through valleys. They never stopped. They never slept, right? They went to such lengths to bring someone back, to help them out. And that's stuff that we need to be doing to others in the fire service. You get to people who have been estranged from the fire service or made bad decisions or is in the corner of your firehouse, always quiet all the time, stuff like that. Or someone who used to be on and just for some reason quit, no rhyme or reason behind it, and you don't know why.
Right.
Those are the people that we need to go out like Aragorn did, like these three did, and just go run after them and don't stop, and just go do what you can to grab them, because let's be honest, they deserve it. We all deserve it. We deserve someone to come after us like them. And so that's one big thing that comes to me from that, but there's so many other little and big things that you can learn from this series. And let's not just talk about just those lessons, but let's talk about the creativity that comes from reading fiction books. Okay. Like I love the leadership books, don't get me wrong. I love the self-help type stuff or whatever that's in there. I love history books and things, but reading fiction lets your mind wander. Lets your imagination completely roam. And you're able to, when you let your brain do that, when you let your brain just be imaginative and creative, even if you don't think you have a creative brain, you're making up these images in your head of these landscapes, of these people, of these situations that are happening. That breeds that creativity and ingenuity that you need to then bring back to the fire service to then take the fire service forward. It brings out those unique ideas rather than listening to someone tell you, this is how they do leadership, or this is how human behavior works, or whatever.
Right.
You're creating this doorway that opens up into this big vastness, basically, that allows you to think whatever you want in this, and nobody's going to tell you any differently. So there's no right or wrong way to innovate from there. So that's what I really love, especially about fiction books, but about these ones specifically. So that was a really long answer, I know, but
I love your answer. And here's the thing, it's the most original answer I've received. And not that there's anything wrong with the 180 answers before you. Okay. So I don't want to cast aspersions backwards, but I love Lord of the Rings. I love Tolkien. Boromir's Last Stand is one of my favorite scenes in all of fiction, right before the scene you're talking about where they go chasing. And so I absolutely love not only how they portrayed it in the movie, but also in the books, but not the point. Creativity and empathy that you can gain from reading fiction.
Yes.
The ability to improve your empathy, I think, can't be matched by anything except reading fiction. I don't know of another way, unless you're just naturally gifted and blessed with your upbringing, your nurture, to have a high empathy. I think fiction reading is the number one way you can improve your empathy, because you get put inside so many people's brains and understand why they made the decisions they made. And there's nothing that matches it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not downplaying the content of reading leadership books or,
oh, no,
anything like that. But fiction has such and I tell people this all the time. Reading is doing deadlifts for your brain. I don't care what you're reading. It is deadlifts for your brain. It is squats for your brain, man. 100%. So I love your answer. All right. We have a thing we do on the weekly scrap. It is called the 5 questions for firefighters. After a point in time, it became the next 5 questions for firefighters. And probably some point in the near future, it will become the next, or whatever comes next. 5 questions for firefighters. But my question for you, Taylor, is are you ready? Here's the thing. There is no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
They're completely your opinion, and the points are arbitrary, assigned by me with the assistance of the beautiful Facebook audience. Are you ready for the next 5 questions for firefighters?
Let's do it. I'm in.
Let's do it. Number 1. What single characteristic makes the difference between a run-of-the-mill firefighter and the top tier go-to badass firefighter?
So this might actually tie into the book a little bit. But I want to say something about this is that I've actually been thinking about this answer since way before I knew I was going to be on here.
Okay.
And every time every time that this question comes up, this answer has gotten higher and higher and higher in my brain of like, yes, this is solidified. This is my answer for this every time. It is compassion. And I know some people out there are like, wait, compassion? How does that make any sense? Of course, you have to have compassion for others in the fire service or the people you're taking care of, right?
Right.
That's a given. You have to, right?
Sure.
Of course. What about compassion for your fellow firefighters?
Right.
Another pretty easy one, right?
Right.
We won't spend too much time there. What about compassion for your captains and your fire chief? What about compassion when they make decisions you don't agree with? What about compassion for knowing what they're going through? Let's lead it down another road. Let's talk about compassion for your family at home and what they're dealing with, what they're dealing with, where like my husband has to deal with me on the volunteer side, running out in the middle of nowhere. And now he's like, wait, this is different. We're going to have a kid. He's going to have to take care of that kid when I'm running and gone. Let's talk about him, being gone at work when I'm here at home. What am I going through? If you're on a department where they get mandatory overtime, yeah, it sucks, but you come back from that, you expect your family to be happy and see you. They've had stressful days.
Right.
They weren't expecting that Mando either. Like you have to have compassion for that, compassion for your kids who are angry with you or just want to see you for a few more minutes or something. You have to have compassion for that. But I think the biggest takeaway from all this is having compassion for yourself. And we forget about that a lot. Right. And like all of us do, we're here to help people, right? We're here for other people. We don't like to think, even though we're very selfish people in general, people are selfish. We don't think about ourselves.
Right.
Not as firefighters. We are in the nature, we're in the business, whether career or volunteer, we're in the business of helping others. We come last. And you need to have compassion with yourself, for the ways you're feeling, for what you're going through, for being tired. If you missed a workout, don't beat yourself up about it for days on end. Have compassion for that time that you missed it and get back on it the next time you can.
I love it.
Have compassion for having a short fuse with other people. It happens, You just have to make sure you have that compassion for yourself as well. So I think to me, that is the takeaway. There is just the compassion to me is the big one that you have to have.
I love your answer. At first I did. Okay. I'll be honest. When you first said compassion, I was like, wait, what?
Okay.
But you absolutely explained yourself. And here's the deal. Like a big thing for me right now, like I've been on this kick personally. Right. And it's grace. Mm-hmm. Because anything that happens, you can pass judgment or you can have grace. Whether it's someone else doing something to you, like you just said, every entity that you just mentioned, as far as compassion, you know what I'm saying? I look at it the same way, and I could substitute the word. So that's why I actually ended up loving your answer, is because fire chief, constituents, the patient you're going on, you can pass judgment or you can have grace. And then you get yourself, and you can beat yourself up. You can kick your own ass. And sometimes you need to. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Sometimes you got to be honest with yourself and look in the mirror. But you can also have grace. And that's that compassion. So 100% max points. At first I was like, this is easy, not max points. And then you actually completely took max points. Number 2, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice as a rookie, what would it be?
This was hard for me to actually think of. But I think it'd have to be that everybody, no matter who they are, knew absolutely nothing when they started. And that comes back to me and speaks to me so hard. Just the greatest minds in the world, the greatest minds in the fire service here had no idea how to even hook up a nozzle to the end of the hose. They didn't know how it worked. They didn't know how to hold extrication tools. They didn't even know how to use a Halligan. They didn't know how to do any of this stuff. So why am I getting down on myself for not knowing this either? I don't know how they did it. They did it by working and working and working. The greatest mathematicians in the world didn't just suddenly know 2 + 2 out of nowhere.
Right,
They had to be
right.
taught that at some point. So I think for me, that's exactly what it is, that everybody else knew nothing when they first started. So get comfortable with that. Get comfortable in your own skin of doing that and push yourself to keep learning more and more.
I got to read you these. Great answer. I got to read you these because it said, Brent Clapp said, yes, having compassion. I lost it because it slid. It will lead you to integrity, empathy, and trust. Max points. Greg Van Ham said, that's a great answer and a different way of looking at the decisions being made above your, it just slid, above your rank. Max points. So it wasn't just me. They absolutely agree with your max points. And this is what I love about your advice. It's tied right back into compassion and grace. Man, 100%, man. Max points, 2 for 2. Number 3, what is your favorite training drill?
So this is going to be kind of generic, okay. I think, but I like puzzles. I'm a huge puzzle person. Like, give me a Sudoku, give me like actual puzzles. I'm into it. So if you give me a scenario of like showing up to quote unquote on scene or whatever, and you're like, we have to get this done. You may not necessarily have the resources, but figure something out. That's what I love to do. I love, this is the only things we have available. We have this truck to work with, get water from here to here, but we have this thing holding you up. And I have to think very quickly about getting through that stuff. That's the stuff I like. I like being able to, I have to know exactly what's on my rigs, right, that we're taking places. I have to know how the equipment works. I have to know maybe what we have in mutual aid areas. You have to know all this back stuff to be able to do this right. But it's so much fun to be able to stretch your brain that way, and not just do as much as I love doing the basics, and I will drill the basics like down crazy, of course, but as much as I love doing those, I love when my brain gets a chance to just play. So just give me a scenario of like, have fun, go do it, get it done in actual real time, see how fast we can do it and how we can figure it out. So those are definitely my favorite drills to do.
Anything that challenges your brain and gives you problem solving drills?
Yes, exactly.
That's really hard to argue with. I would like to not give you max points on one of these, but you honestly earn max points with anything that engages my brain. So 3 for 3. Number 4, what mistake have you learned the most from in your fire service career?
There's a lot of those that I feel like I could pick from.
Join the club.
Exactly. I think the one I'm going to go with though is not being comfortable enough in my own skin right away. And this has held me back so much because I mean, I've gotten, I don't know, you get hung up, you're like, I can't be myself, like I'm a geeky person. We already talked about Lord of the Rings. We got into Disney a little bit before, I
got a Disney question coming.
So, great. Yeah. So like Disney, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, like give me anything geekiness, like I am in, that is me. But it can be hard sometimes too, to then feel yourself in the fire service with some of these geeky side of things, or whatever you have to your name, whatever it is. And when you're so guarded on yourself and you're worried about what you're going to say, are you going to sound stupid? Are you going to sound like you don't belong here? Whatever. You're guarding your brain so much that your brain doesn't have a chance to actually learn, doesn't have a chance to get out of your comfort zone. Right. And I wish I would have done this early on where I finally got to this point. It's still tough to do in new situations with new people and new groups. But if you let yourself just go and not worry what other people think about you and just be comfortable in your own skin, your brain has chances to then reach out and actually help, actually be a part of the conversation, not just sitting in the corner listening, have good things to add to it, and then be able to think through problems that are maybe happening or things that you can help fix. If your brain's too caught up on trying to keep itself safe, you're not going to have these opportunities in front of you, and your creativity is going to be lost.
All right. I love it. And no pressure because you went 4 for 4 so far. So you have a chance for max points on 5 for 5.
Oh boy. Okay.
No pressure whatsoever. Yeah. Everybody said max points on that one. Mic drop. Yes. With like 4 exclamation points. No, 100%. Heavy fire, searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle first in on VES? Your choice.
My choice, so I have 2 reasonings for this, but my choice is going to be nozzle. First off, I'm an engine person. I just love that. I don't know why. I've always been captivated by it. Second reasoning being a little bit more in depth because I'm never very simple. I never just do a one answer here.
Okay.
I believe on the fire ground, it is my job to make sure that I am doing what's most effective for my department, right? And let's be honest, as much as I love the nozzle, and as much as I know I can do search and I'd be fine at doing search, I am not the most effective at doing search, at doing VES. I would rather somebody else on scene who is more equipped to do VES, better at doing it, go do it. I would rather the IC or whoever's in charge recognize that and send us to do what we actually are there to do the best, because that's the whole reason we're there. The whole reason we're there is to do the best for the homeowner or for whatever's happening, right? So where would I be if I was like, oh, I'm not very good at this, but I want to do that and get thrown up to do VES? Again, I can do it, but I know there's other people out there who are better than me, and I want to do what I do to help the public, to help that person. Plus, let's be honest, if I'm on the nozzle, I'm probably going to save way more people. So
I love it. Hey, here's the deal. I don't think anyone's ever said, correct me if I'm wrong. The audience will absolutely correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think anyone's ever said, like, I'm better on the nozzle, and so therefore there's someone better on VES. So send them to do it and put me on the knob. And of course the nozzle will save more people in the by the math. By the math.
Yeah. Yes. Like I said, it's more fun. It's more what I want to do, but it's also where I'm stronger at anyway. So
that will officially make it 5 for 5 max points on all 5 Taylor Anderson and Couplings Fire podcast, crushing the next 5 questions for firefighters. Not just my opinion, that is 100% backed up. Bonus question coming at you. I got 2 bonus questions. First,
yay! Here we go.
So David Stender wants to know, what Disney character does Taylor closely relate to? That's it. I'll just leave it there.
I would say either Mulan or Moana.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like people are not going to stop me when I have an idea in my head, and I'm going to go for it. I'm not afraid to. I am sometimes afraid to get out of my comfort zone, but I make myself do it anyways, which I feel like both of them did. And when I'm there, I don't try to make excuses for things. I just get it done, even if it's hard. And I mean, I feel like either one of those two is probably who sometimes I'm like Dory, where I forget things and be like, wait, what? But
I'm not a big Disney aficionado, so I really can't. But this next question comes from me, and it's very important. This might be the most important question ever asked on the scrap.
Yeah,
it's sequels, prequels, or original trilogy
for Star Wars. Okay. Oh, that's tough. Because I grew up when the prequels were coming out, and I actually don't hate them like most people do. Yeah, I'm gonna catch crap for this. I like the prequels. I really do. I think there is something there. I think, well, one of the reasons people hate the prequels is because they hated seeing how kiddish or what's the word I'm looking for, whiny or whatever that Vader was, that Anakin was, right? That's one of the main reasons why a lot of people hate it, from what I've gathered. Let's be honest. Most people that we look up to as villains like that, they started from a point like that. They started from being whiny people who things didn't go their way, and then they turned to a villain. I mean, I just feel like that's a natural course. So to me, it doesn't hurt anything. I don't know. So
no, I really do think that it really comes down to your age. It really does. Yeah. I don't think anybody's saying sequels.
No.
Yet.
No. Yet. Yeah.
But it really does come down to prequels or original trilogy, and it really does come down to your age. It really, really does, because there is a definite generation gap on that.
Now, I will say, even though the prequels are by far my favorite, like overall together, my very favorite is Return of the Jedi.
Really?
So it's an outlier compared to like I like the prequels altogether. If you give me that as an option, so yeah.
Okay. No, Empire is the best ever of all whatever. Insert stories even and makes them like the best of all 14. But that's my personal opinion.
Now, if
And
you want to get into Lord of the Rings, now Return of the King is by far the best one out of all six.
I don't think that's arguable. I don't think
No,
that's
it's
even
not.
arguable. No. All right. This took we went down a very nerdy rabbit hole with Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. And Disney. I don't think all we could really do is add Harry Potter in to really get the nerd quotient up a little bit higher.
Here we go. I'm Hufflepuff all the way.
There we go. That's not surprised me. So whatever. Sam keeps chiming in with a little laugh. So
there we go. We tied it all in. All four big nerdiness that I'm into is pretty much in there at the moment. So
in fact, we may do a thing on the scraps at some point of what house what house are you selected for? Sequels, prequels. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'd be in. That'd be an awesome, like tack it to the end of the questions.
Right on. No, 100%. Okay. Let me pull my notes up. That's a whole nother podcast. Well, there it is with I don't know how many questions we actually ended up with. 171, 181 scraps in the books. The Taylor Anderson thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. If someone wants to get a hold of you, get more info from you, etc., how can they go about doing that?
Couplings Fire Podcast on Facebook, on Instagram, couplingsfirepodcast@gmail.com. They can contact me. That's pretty much the best ways to get to me, is like those 3 avenues there.
Right on.
Yeah.
Housekeeping, here we go. Firehousevigilance.com. Go there, get swag, get whatever you need. The Vigilantes, go join up. $5 a month. You can sign up for a year if you want, if you don't like subscriptions. We are currently working on doing Vigilante. We haven't worked out the system yet, but we're going to do Vigilante meetups at any conference where Vigilantes are going to be at. We're working on coordinating it, and it's going to be cool. But
that is so cool.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But we haven't worked out the details yet. We've had a few conferences where Vigilantes have been, and we haven't worked it out. But we're going to make it happen. And that's one of the things we're working on. That's just one small bonus besides the exclusive swag, the exclusive content. So all that. So go to firehousevigilance.com, be a part of that. Scraps. The killer lineup of 2023 continues. We had Taylor Anderson this week, Couplings Fire Podcast. Chris Stewart is next week, and then Frank Lieb, and then Rob Ramirez. So how crushing killer is. Yeah. Does it get better? Anyway, your fridges, coolers, everything. I don't have my stickers in here, but if you want stickers, if you want helmet stickers, if you want stickers to put on your Yetis, your fridges, whatever you need stickers on, rate the podcast, rate it on Spotify, rate it on iTunes, or you can go and rate the 9L's book on Amazon. Take a screenshot, send it to me, and I will 100% bribe you with stickers. I'm not above bribing. Other than that, my sister, Taylor Anderson, thank you for being such a phenomenal guest.
Thank you so much for having me, Coralie. This has been amazing and such an honor.
we really enjoyed some good rabbit holes.
Yeah.
The nerdiness at the end was like really the highlight for me. I'm not going to lie. Audience, you absolutely make the scrap magical. I appreciate your questions. I appreciate your chiming in on max points when applicable. Thank you for tuning in live. I love you all. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tone stays silent unless it is burning. Everybody, stay safe out there.